So here we are back again with another A2A athlete story. Joining me, as always, is Reid Meyer, our co-founder and CEO. And today, when Reid joins me, he's actually going to be asking the questions. We've done a ton of stories. We've talked to a good amount of people, and now they're turning the tides on me. So the interviewer becomes the interviewee today. So I'm gonna shut up and allow Reid to take the reins and dig in and ask some questions. So go ahead, Reid, fire away.
All right, Ryan, let's do it, man. Yeah, this is new territory for both of us. So I'm excited to hear more of your story and for you to share it with everybody else. So let's kick it right off, man. Let's start where everybody else started. Take me back to the beginning. Talk about growing up. Talk about what sports you played, who you played with. Let's start there.
Yeah, Easton, Pennsylvania, born and raised. That's literally where I'm from. It's where I'm at now. Um, Being in Easton, you're part of the great lineage of Easton athletes. It's just kind of how it works. There's so many. Get rid of that. There's just so many athletes that come from Easton. So many great athletes that come from Easton. I had the privilege of growing up with some of them. One of which is wrestling to make a world team spot literally on Friday. Jordan Oliver. He's one of the people that I first, put on wrestling shoes with, and he's continuing to be an athlete. My brothers, they were amazing athletes. My oldest brother, Bobby, he had a record at our high school. I forget what event it was, but he had a track record that he did, and we always kind of say that the person that broke it, there's kind of the first person to break it was kind of an asterisk where he did it at the state tournament, whereas my brother did it during the season. He had the regulation time to get it done. And then my other brother Justin, him and I are 8.5 years apart, but you would think that we were twins. He's my best friend. We have one tattoo that we share together. Not on purpose, more of an on accident thing. But those are my big influences outside of my dad, who was an amazing football player and wrestler, who got me started in sports. But just being in my family, you kind of you don't really have a choice but to be an athlete. Essentially, my uncle was the heavyweight champ of the world, and I grew up watching that. As I'm at practice, he's training, and he's training to be the best heavyweight boxer that there is. He fought the greats. He trained with Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali gave my uncle Larry his first black eye. If anyone ever read his book or has seen, the Muhammad and Larry 30 for 30, he talks about it, and some of the trainers talk about it. Muhammad gave him his first black eye at a camp literally right around where I ended up going to college, which is absolutely insane. In like outside of Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Pennsylvania, is where their camp was. And that's kind of my family lineage essentially. My cousin Larry Jr. played football. My cousin Eddie Scipio was one of the best football players here in the Lehigh Valley. So it's crazy to me to just refer to them as my brother, my cousin, my uncle. But I was part of a long line of athletes in my family. I played football, baseball, and wrestling growing up, which ultimately became football and wrestling later on because I realized I need a break from sports a little bit. That's something we'll get into a little bit later. But being part of a boxing family, I won't even say part of a boxing family. I'd much rather say part of a hardworking family that just made athletics our thing. That's really what it was about for us. Whether it was my brother playing football or my brother running track or my sister who was in the band. She was a flag twirler. There's actually pictures of me out in the front yard practicing her routine with her when I was like 3 or 4 years old. So like I was just an active kid, flag football, wrestling, boxing. I learned how to box probably before anything else because there was just always boxing gloves just kind of laying around. There's actually a couple of them right here behind me that my uncle actually signed along with a couple other boxers. So athletics was just the thing. Probably a very long-winded answer, but growing up here in Easton, when you're an athlete, whether you're at the top of the heap or not, like you're just part of kind of an elite group, and there's a number of athletes that have come out of here, specifically the Lehigh Valley in general, that have done very well. Some of them, like I said, Jordan Oliver, still doing very, very well, and doing things on the next level. So, grew up an athlete. Like I said, didn't really have much of a choice with my brothers and my sister being as active as they were, and then, watching my uncle literally ascend to greatness. You got to put in the work, and that was like the main thing that came out of me starting sports at such a young age of 4 years old.
Yeah, and what an incredible community of, like you said, not only people but athletes to grow up around, and yeah, you see their work ethic and you see the different things that we're doing. I want to go back a little bit, when you were growing up, being around those types of athletes with that kind of work ethic and that kind of mindset when it comes to sports. It sounds like your brother had 8 years on you, so a little bit older, and you were able to come in and kind of be that younger brother in that space. Was it always all fun, or did you feel like some people, did you learn how to have a very competitive mindset early? Was it just, hey, I'm out here having a great time with my brother, and oh man, I just happen to like this sport, and I never want to stop doing it? I mean, what was your relationship with sport at that age when you were just sort of like learning what sport was?
Yeah. Competing was a mindset for us. We used to have a weight set that was literally built into the wall of the house down in our basement. That is now completely removed, but my oldest brother, who ran track and also played football, I used to work out with him when I was little. I had, and the funny thing is that I'm pretty sure it's still, in the back room, of my parents' houses, a small weight bench that probably had, I think, like a couple of plastic weights that then graduated onto some legit weights when I was, I don't know, 10 years old. And I used to work out with my oldest brother downstairs in the basement. And that's kind of where that work ethic kind of came from, was starting out from a very young age. Is we're going to be good at sports. We're going to compete in everything that we do, and we're just going to be good. And as a young athlete, and like I said, seeing my uncle doing the things that he's doing, where I'm sitting front row and in Vegas watching him fight, or I'm at his gym watching him train, getting ready for Riddick Bowe or Oliver McCall, or watching his fight against Muhammad Ali, or watching his fight with him against Mike Tyson, where he loses. Like, getting that firsthand kind of outlook on sports, I know how privileged I was to grow up in that atmosphere. Like I said, my closest brother and I, Justin, 8.5 years between the two of us, we did not get along. We just didn't. I was the younger brother that always wanted to tag along, and he didn't want me around. You know what I mean? He's the cool older brother. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something that you want when he's a teenager. I mean, think about it. He's 16, I'm 8. And you just want to be around your cool older brother, and he just wants to beat you up and leave the house, right? He wants to go with his friends who have licenses and cars, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and I'm 8 years old, and I'm just learning sports, but I'm learning from him. I'm watching him on Friday night, I'm watching him on Saturday afternoon, or I'm watching my oldest brother play, you know what I mean? So just being in that atmosphere from a young age was like, it's pretty crazy, because like I said, I had cousins who were cream of the crop, best athletes in the state in track, in football. So it just, being surrounded by that, it was pretty wild. And I didn't know until much later how like privileged I was to be in that atmosphere. But it was a big deal, and it was always a big deal, and it became a big deal when my brother Justin went off to college. He went off to Wilkes University, which I ultimately went and played football at for the same coach as well. But it was when he left and then he came back that we truly became like really good friends. And that's when I started picking up the weights again. And him, as well as my cousin Larry Jr., we were in the gym, and they truly, like, as much as I thought I was doing something with my oldest brother Bobby, when I was down in the basement lifting play school weights, it really wasn't anything, right? So, while I learned some fundamental things as a 6 or 7 or 8 year old, I really learned that to turn on that switch and to go into the gym and do that hard work when it came to lifting weights with my brother Justin and my cousin Larry. And they did not take it easy on me. My uncle Larry did not take it easy on me when it came to putting on gloves and hitting the bag when I was little. So there was no easy path. But, you know, like I said, one of the things that I'm glad I was kind of naive to until I got to be, I want to say around 12 years old, was that I was a Holmes in Easton. And for people that don't really understand what that means, it's like, and I don't want to sound egotistical or anything, but it's like being, you know, I'm wearing a Deion Sanders saying. It's like being Deion Sanders' son. You know, you're part of that family where you're expected to be good. And when you're not good or when you lose, it's an even bigger deal. Everything we did, good or bad, was attached to my uncle. And that's the thing that kind of sucked, because it was like, you know, nephew of. You were always the nephew of. So, like, I became driven to live up to that name from a very young age, and didn't realize, like, how much of a shadow was being cast until much later. But like I said, it was a crazy atmosphere to grow up in. You know, I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more, but it was privilege, but it was hard. It was really tough, and I don't think a lot of people around realized how hard it was being the nephew of a professional athlete, doing things on the most grand of levels. You know, he'd come back with a belt. You know, we're surrounded by championship belts when we're eating Thanksgiving dinner. But it was an expectation, and we just knew we were going to be good. We knew we were going to excel, and that we were going to be a name that you heard over the loudspeaker.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I'm so happy you talked about that and brought that up, because you're right. It's you know, when you talk about that expectation and that family upbringing and that connection to greatness, really is what it comes down to, right? And I think, you know, like you said, it sounds like there wasn't really an option to not have that passion for sports, especially at a young age, and sort of have that be a part of
Mm-hmm.
your connecting point to your family. So, you know, looking into, like you said, you know, 12 is kind of when you realize there was a bit of a shift there. You know, looking into that middle school, that high school career, you know, what was your relationship with sport like at that point? Was it still fun? Were you still having a blast? Did it shift into, hey, this is what we do as a family. I need to make sure I'm up to a certain par so that I'm reaching up to my uncle's expectations or my brother's expectations or the Holmes name expectations? Or, you know, when did that, if at all, did that sort of shift in your brain as you sort of moved through that middle school, high school portion of your life?
It was always fun, and it became heavier when I lost a wrestling match. I can't remember what tournament it was. I just remember what the dad said to his son. He was like, "You just beat the nephew of the heavyweight champ of the world." That resonated with me, because it wasn't that he beat me. He felt like he beat a piece of my family, right? And I was like, I was the one that was out there. Like, I lost the match. You know what I mean? Like you beat me. Like, I can internalize that. But like, when you take it a step further and you realize how people see you and how people look at you as an athlete, they just expect, you know, you have the championship genes. You're supposed to be good. You're supposed to be at the top of the podium. So like, and I never had like pressure. I wouldn't say there was like pressure to be great, like from my parents or anything else. But there was pressure to be great. You know, let's call it what it is. Like, you have pressure to live up to something. And for me, once I heard that, I was like, all right, challenge accepted, you know, and you knowing me now, like, you're like, oh yeah, that completely resonates, because that's who I am. You know, now everything is challenge accepted. It's not, you know, nobody's ever going to tell me that I can't do something, right? if I feel like setting my mind to doing it, I'm going to get up, I'm going to put the work in, and I'm going to get it done. And that was something that we learned. We learned it in the gym before we even made it onto any highlight reel on Friday or Saturday afternoon or Friday night. We did it in the gym. There was very heavy days in the gym at a young age where you couldn't get the weight off your chest. And my brother and my cousin were like, get the weight off your chest. We're not pulling that off you, right? Like or there was the Jedi mind trick. It's only 135 pounds. You wrestle 135 pounds. If you can't get that 135 pounds off you now, how are you going to do it when the lights are on? It's just us in here watching you. So you got to figure that out. So like it was always fun for me. Sports was always fun for me until I got to high school. When I got to high school is when it was still fun, but it became a little bit less fun. Because you didn't just have to live up to, the world heavyweight champ uncle. My dad went to our neighboring school. He went to Easton High School. I went to Wilson High School, where we live. But you always have to live up to that too. My dad was, one of the top people around wrestling. We wrestled the same weight. So like I had to live up to that. I had to live up to, my sister being, like I said, life of the party, but she was, not the partier. She was more the person that just like knew everyone and was in with, the principal and the teacher and got good grades and was just like coordinating everything. And like I said, she was in the band twirling and twirling flags. And then my brother, Justin, when he was in high school was, in the newspaper scoring touchdowns. And, my older brother breaking records in track and scoring touchdowns as well. So there was just so many things that, with me being the last of them, kind of had to live up to. And that was hard. And I know now what that was about the pressure and the mental kind of toll that took. But I didn't play football my freshman year. I thought I was too small. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think that I was tough enough. Like insert doubt here as a 14-year-old freshman. And that's one of the things is I was younger than everybody else in my class. I started school when I was 4. So I was 4 turning 5 in kindergarten. So, when most kids are 5 turning 6, I was 4 turning 5. So that started to catch up to me a little bit when I was a freshman. And nowadays, parents are holding their kids back. My dad was like, you can spell, you can read, you can write, go to school, right? So that was kind of one of the things that they did. So, like I said, when I got to high school, when it came to football, I was like, man, there's no weight classes out there. If I get hit by a really big dude, I get hit by a really big dude. And that, there was doubt in my mind. And like I said, not only that, I had to live up to being a Holmes. It's really hard to do. But I wrestled. I stopped playing baseball. My freshman year was the last time that I played baseball for my school. I ended up playing like club in the summer and stuff like that, but I did not play baseball for the high school team. And then that next year, I had talked to the football coach. Like I said, I played football up until 8th grade. 9th grade is probably the only year that I had skipped. And he said, come on for the team. Let's go. And I had wrestling teammates that were also football players, and they were like, why aren't you playing? Like, let's go. So that next year I played, and I had a ton of fun. And it kind of restored the fun, but you felt the expectation coming back because my brother was playing at Wilkes. Like I said, the school that I ended up going to. So I knew that, and he had, letters coming to the house when he's getting recruited. I remember watching that. And I'm like, oh, I want that. I want those letters. I want to be able to say that so-and-so is recruiting me. And I obviously had that D1 or bust type of mentality because, I saw my brother going D3 and I was like, that's okay. Like, it's cool. Like, he's playing college football. And that's what I knew. He's playing college football. But I was like, man, I want to be even better. I want to be the best. Not to say that the best athletes come out of Division I schools because I played with guys that probably play professional football and seen plenty of Division III athletes go on to play professionally. But I just was competitive in that I wanted to be the next. I wanted to do great things. And that was kind of where my mentality went. So like, it stopped being fun. It became more fun. Um, but then the spotlight is on you. And when the spotlight's on, it's hot. And how are you going to respond? Are you going to, you're going to go into your shell, or you're going to come out, you're going to thrive, you're going to do these really great things. And I will never say that I was the best athlete. I wasn't the best football player. I wasn't the best baseball player. I was really good at the sports that I played, enough that I got, and I'll never forget, 2 Division I letters, one of which was from Columbia for wrestling. And if I would have known I was going to be a journalist, I would have sprinted to the Columbia Journalism School. But at that point, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then the other was for Lehigh. I definitely wasn't academically astute. I was, not that I had bad grades. I will say that I did fail my chemistry class in 10th grade, which is probably the only class that I've ever failed in my entire life, was my chemistry class. Came kind of close in college, but I did fail a chemistry class in high school. But yeah, I got a letter from Lehigh, I got a letter from Columbia, and it was more on the athletic side, certainly not on the academic side. I'm more of a smart ass than a smart guy. So, that's kind of my academics in a nutshell, where I was really good at math. I was horrible in English because, that's just how it works. When you go on to college, you get a degree in English. You have to be terrible at it before you're better at it, I guess. But,
That's an interesting lane that you chose to take there with that, but hey, it worked out.
It did. And the thing is, many years later, I'm now friends with some of my high school teachers, some of my math teachers, specifically my English teacher from high school. And when I told him in high school, it's actually, kind of a twofold funny story about me having a degree in English, a minor in communications, and a minor in women's studies, which was completely accidental. But when I told him I was going to major in English, he said, yeah, I could see that. And I'm like, I had a B minus, a C plus in your class. Like, how could you see that? And he's like, well, because for people listening to this that know me, they're probably going to laugh and shake their head at this. You're opinionated. And when it comes to reading these books and reading this literature, your opinion is what came forth more so than what we were telling you these authors were talking about. And in high school, I'm sure everyone can attest, it's like, hey, here's your math book. Here's how you do the equation. Tell me how I just told you how to do this. And that's what everything is in high school, right? It's really regurgitory. It's, apply this to this. Instead, I'm not that type. I'm more, like I said, opinionated. I read a book and I'm like, this is what I think it's about. And that's why I did better in English in college, because I was able to open my mind up and I was able to read something and be like, I can apply this to this. Like, I see the correlation here and I could explain it and I could talk my way through it, whether it be written or, standing and giving an oral report. So that's how I got into English. Was, I just really kind of good. I changed my major a couple of times. But yeah, I think I've gone off on a tangent, but I'm gonna kind of pause and let you get your next question in here.
No, it's good. We're gonna build ourselves back up to some of those pieces, because I definitely want to dive more into those things. I do want to go back just a little bit, talking about your entrance into high school, and you're obviously on the younger side of the spectrum with your family, and so I hear what you're talking about when you go into this school, and it is kind of this mentality of, like you said, people know the Holmes name in your city. There's obviously been impact that your family's made at that school, and so it's almost this. I have to imagine for you, there's almost this feeling of like people are sitting there going, okay, what is this Holmes going to do?
Yes.
Like, how is he going to etch his name in what's going on here? And, did that first part of this question that leads into kind of the second part, but feel free to take it where you want. But, was that part of your hesitance to play football? I know you said you were younger, you felt like you were a little bit smaller. Was there a feeling of like, I'm not going to be able to go in and play this at the level or at the quality that I think a Holmes needs to play this at in order to compete right now? Like, was that part of that factor in the football space? And then once you sort of got comfortable and started playing sports in high school, how did that take me through sort of that phase of what we're doing, and talk about, how that built into your recruiting process, and where the interest is coming from. Because you mentioned in here, there was interest from wrestling. Obviously, you ended up being a football player in college. And so, how did those things play against each other? How did you make that decision? Dive into that for me once you get done.
Yeah, I definitely felt the expectation. It it sucks when you get to school and the teachers you had are the same ones your siblings had, and or same one that coached your brother, and you're called Justin because that's who they remember. And you know, like I said, there were so many years between the two of us that you would think that would happen, but they call you that, and it's a constant reminder that, excuse me, that no matter what you're doing, you're attached to this. So you're playing for yourself, but ultimately you're playing for something bigger. Um, so that was how I kind of navigated that. I was just like, listen, if they're gonna expect greatness from me, I have to be great. And I was trying to be great for all the wrong reasons, and I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I didn't. I tried to do things my own way, um, and that was not playing as a freshman. That was just wrestling my first year in high school, not playing baseball. Ultimately, I never picked up a baseball. Well, I didn't play baseball for the high school ever. Played Legion or summer club, whatever else. But it was just always, the shadow was always cast, and it was always really dark. Whether it was your Larry's nephew or your Bob's son or your Justin's brother, pick one, right? So you just kind of had to navigate it the way that you could. It's really tough. It's really, really tough to do. Even to this day, still very tough. I came back to my hometown about a little over a year ago, right in the height of COVID. I have a mask on at the store, and this is kind of tangential, but like it works into literally how I grew up. And all you could see was my eyes. I had a hat on, maybe even the hat I'm wearing. And a woman walked by me, and as she's saying, "Excuse me," she stopped middle sentence and said, "Oh my God, you're a Holmes." And I'm like, I've been here for all of 3 weeks. I have a mask on. All you can see is my eyes. She's like, "Oh, I could just see it in the eyes and the nose." And I'm like, that solidifies even more that, like, one, as a 34-year-old, I'm past that stuff. I have my own career. I've built my own. But, like, those are the things that I always wanted to get away from. Um, because it's really, really tough. It's really tough to be pigeonholed like that. I'm my own person. There's a lot of people who may be listening to this right now who don't even know this part of my life. They don't know. There's a good amount of people. Some of my friends, I literally just found out, some of my closest friends, when I was at the NCAA tournament this year, they had no idea who my uncle was. They didn't know, not said they didn't know who he was, but they didn't know he was my uncle. And that was a big deal for me because I'm like, they like me for who I've become and what I've built. So that was a really big deal. Um, but like trying to navigate that space as a teenager, your body's changing, you're starting to like girls, you're trying to get a driver's license, you're worried about passing algebra, there's a game on Friday, you got to study film, like there's all these things. And then it's just like, remember, all these people are watching you because of your lineage. And it just was really, really tough. And it was really, really hard. And there were people, some teachers, that wanted to be harder on you because of it. There were some that wanted to be easier on you because of it. And I just was just like, just treat me like a normal person. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like, I'm no different than, the kid that I'm sitting next to. I'm no different than David or Timmy or Sarah across the room. You know what I mean? Like, just treat me like normal. I happen to be an athlete, and I won't say that it wasn't cool to get the perks of being an athlete or being a Holmes and growing up in that privileged type of life, but like it was hard. It was really, really hard. And, as I was getting older, things became more and more fun. I had an amazing coach who to this day I'm still friends with, and I still call coach. Like, there's that meme of when you make an impact in an athlete's life, you're coach for life. If you don't, they will not call you coach when you see them again. And the man that made like a huge impact on me was Coach Dave Kroll. He's still coaching at Nazareth High School. He was my high school wrestling coach my freshman and sophomore year, and then he went on to coach at Nazareth, where he's still at. But he had a huge impact on me, and he still does. I'm still very good friends with him and his wife, as well as his son, and such a great man. There's plenty of wrestlers on the Division I level right now that can attest to him, his guidance and everything else. But like, I wish I would have never lost that coach, because when I lost that coach and I had somebody new come in, I lost my love of wrestling. I've continued to wrestle, but I didn't have the love of it to do it on the Division I level. It was no longer my passion. And I would have been doing it for all the wrong reasons. Ultimately, I wanted to lace up the shoes once again, once I got to college, but I never did, because I had football, and it's really hard it doesn't matter, D1, D2, D3. It's really hard to be a multiple sport athlete in college. It just really is. So praise to anybody that can actually balance it. But my passion for wrestling, I just lost it because of a terrible high school situation in my last 2 years, specifically my senior year. But football it was just fun. And not only that, and my brother and I became even better friends when he went off to college and came back, and he was no longer the immature teenager, and I was an immature kid, but like, he had patience now, right? He had a different patience for me as a kid, so it changed a lot. And I'm starting to get recruited. A lot of Division III offers. Like I said, I got 2 Division I offers, Lehigh as well as Columbia. I got a letter to wrestle at something in Australia once, which I was like, yeah, we'll see what this is. But I ultimately never did. But yeah, like I said, Division III football offers, a couple of Division II and III wrestling offers as well. But I ultimately decided to go to Wilkes over Kings, who was our rival. And that I'll never second guess. But over like Albright, over Delaware Valley, stuff like that. Like, I ultimately decided to go to Wilkes because my brother went there. My parents trusted the atmosphere, and they trusted the coach, which was a very big deal for me. And I trusted the coach. The coach had known me since, like I said, since I was 9-10 years old. So that was a very big deal. I was comfortable. Looking back on it, should I have gone outside my comfort zone? Maybe. But being comfortable with the school is like number one for me. So yeah, like I said, I ultimately ended up at Wilkes, and navigating that recruiting process was really tough because, like I said, I had lost my passion for wrestling, but like, I still wanted to do it, right? Like, but it wasn't like, heart wasn't in the right place to do it. So yeah, it was just really tough. But navigating the recruiting process as a young high school senior, as a 17-year-old high school senior, was hard. My mom had to stay on campus with me that first day to sign all the papers, right? Everybody else's parents have left and gone home. I'm sitting there with my mom, me, and like, I want to say 2 other people, sitting there with their parents because they can't sign the papers because they're not fully adults yet. So navigating that recruiting process was tough, right? It was really, really tough. And, I got through it. Ultimately, like I said, I had an older brother who had gone through it, 2 older brothers that had gone through it. My oldest brother, Bobby, didn't finish college, but, decided to go into the workforce, I believe, after 2 years. But my brother, Justin, got a degree from Wilkes, and, I just had him to fall back on and pick his brain. It was just really, really cool to be able to say that, like, the same streets or halls or anything else that my brother walked into, that I was able to do the same thing. So it was a big deal to me.
Absolutely. Well, and I think you alluded to it just a second ago, the fact that you've got your brother who went through that process, and you can bounce things off of as you're looking. I have to imagine that if nothing else, created a little bit more comfortability in the process, because you had somebody in your corner who could be like, hey, I've done this before, I've heard that before, whatever it might be. Maybe you want to think about this, or when they say this, maybe it means this, or anything like that. I mean, was that a noticeable difference in your process, or was it one of those things where once you got done, you're like, I'm really happy that I had somebody who I could bounce that off of?
Oh, incredibly happy. The only thing that I wish I would have done is I tried to be him too much when I was 17. I declared the same major. My brother, let's backtrack for that. My dad was a businessman. He's always been in business. Right now, he's a realtor, but like he used to manage my uncle's businesses. Like he's business to a T, knows about business. Um, and my brother majored in business. So I was like, well, I'm supposed to major in business. Like that's just what we do, right? We do sports, we do business. That's just how it works. And I got to Wilkes and I was doing the business thing just like my brother, and I was like, this isn't for me. It's all teaming. I have to, if I do 100% of the work that I'm on the hook for, and the other two or three people in my group do 10%, we all get the same grade. That doesn't sit right with me. That just doesn't sit right with me. I'm a team player through and through, but as a wrestler, if I go out there and I pin all the way through the tournament, I get the championship title. And I know that sounds really selfish, but like it's as much as it's a team sport, it's also an individual sport. And that was a big deal for me. And like I said, I will always pride myself on being a great teammate. But when it came to my future, I didn't want to wage my future on somebody else partying on a Tuesday night and not waking up for class at 8 a.m. on a Wednesday. I didn't
Yeah.
want to wage that, right? So I got out of that. And like I said, I was really good at math in high school. But then they started putting a lot of letters with it in college. And it just like didn't add up. But like I declared math and accounting as my major because, like I said, it was a business avenue track for me. And all the while, I'm getting 4.0s in my English classes, and I'm writing these papers, and I'm doing really well. And I'm like, this just, math is not where it's at for me. Like, this is not, numbers are not computing to me right now. And mind you, I hadn't had a math class in almost 2 years because I tested out of it coming out of high school because I was good enough to test out of it and not have
Mm.
to take it as a freshman. When I declared as a major, not smart on my part. But like I said, I was getting really good grades in English. So it went from that to I'm going to be an English major. Um, and to backtrack, let's full transparency, a complete antithesis of what Noel Hightower said when I interviewed him. Um, well, actually, it's kind of in the same vein. His freshman year, he talked about not being good with school, had a very bad GPA. Had a 1.2 GPA as a freshman, my first semester. It was not good.
Ooh.
Wasn't going to class, wasn't doing the right things. My dad sat me down and was like, this is not how it works. I'm not sending you to go and party and look at girls and this and that, whatever else. Like, grow up, figure it out, and or you're coming home. So those are your options. And at home, there's no football, so none of that happens. And I'm like, I don't want to be stuck here, right? I don't want that to happen. Um, so I end up declaring English as a major very late, and after maybe a semester, I'm watching ESPN, and Stuart Scott is on, and he's talking about his English classes and how they really helped shape and mold him as a writer. And I'm like, I'm doing really good in English. I know a lot about sports. Stuart Scott, somebody that I watch every single day, who is being like, he's otherworldly. I can do that. I can do this whole sports journalism thing. So when I said to my dad, "Hey, like I'm gonna be a writer," he was like, "What the hell are you gonna do with an English degree? English degrees are the butt of every joke. Like, you know, just about as useless as an English degree." But hey, I parlayed my English degree into a career in sports. So communications is my minor. So I studied journalism. And that women's studies minor came from studying a whole bunch of female authors. So it was a big mistake, a big accident, I guess I should say, not so much a mistake. I don't. I love reading all literature that there is, but the women's studies minor doesn't help me understand women any more than I ever could. You know, from, from ages 4 to 50, it doesn't matter. I don't understand them very well, but I do have the minor. It is a really cool talking point, even if it was an accident.
Very cool. What I, yeah. the English thing is hung up on. I mean, you're absolutely right. But I think it's funny though, because and you're a perfect example of this. I think the reason that some of those jokes in the liberal arts world or whatever it might be, or some of those degrees sort of become that is because you go into it without maybe a passion or a direction, right? I think that, you found somebody that you looked up to, you found a career pathway that you were excited about, and you said, okay, how can my current situation get me there? And you took the classes and you were in the space that allows you to do that. And I think the ability to sort of create that small pivot in whatever degree it is you're looking for can make all the difference, right? Because it is easy to, when you talk to most people, when you're doing any type of advising, it's like business, computer science, engineering. I'm like, great, those are always going to be evergreen degree plans that people are going to super, you're going to get your job, it's all good. But like, if you're not passionate about it, or if it doesn't make a difference, or if you can turn this opportunity into something that you can really want to do long term, then I mean, let it rip, man. Like, why not? Like, it's kudos to you for finding that pathway as opposed to just being like, well, everyone told me I have to be a business major. That's what I am. So I'm going to do business, and then I'll figure it out from there. Because in my opinion, you're not making the most of those 4 years because you're allowing yourself to, like you said, you're letting somebody else sort of write your story on what the rest of your life is going to be. And this is your opportunity in college to. Those are your 3 to 5 years, man. However long you're in there, like, that's your opportunity. You get to find out who you are, become who you want to be, set yourself up to be in positions that you want to move on to the next level. So I think I mean, kudos to you for getting an English degree as opposed to just staying in the business world and deciding that's what everyone tells me I should do, so I should do it. So I think I'm spin zoning that. I think it's a good move. I think it's a good lesson on sticking to your guns and doing something you should do. Um,
Yeah, I took the hard route to get there, but right there.
keep it interesting. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, so obviously, first semester and first year in 1.2, you said is what the
It
GPA
was ugly.
was.
It was ugly.
So it was we had a rough intro to college, I think is a fair way to put it.
Oh
Tell
yeah.
me tell me how we got out of that and tell me how we sort of moved throughout the college experience as a football player. Was football sort of your, it sounds like maybe an underlying motivating factor of like, I've got to do these things so that I can stay here and keep playing football. Is that what it always was? Or did it shift out of that as you got more involved in the school?
There were two things that shifted that. One was my father, a Bob Holmes scared straight sort of conversation of sitting in the living room and saying, "No, this is not how it's going to work," um, in so many words, and and then the other was coming home to one of those really brutal workouts with my brother and my cousin, and I was no longer a 13, 14-year old, so um, the workout, while I used to think they were brutal, 15-year-old kid had nothing on this, and it was like you need to be great. You're not going to go to school and you're not going to put up numbers like that. Um, that's not like the first number you ever need to worry about before it's the number on your jersey. It's the number on your test. Um, and that was what my brother, more so than anything, really like drove home for me. And I mean, he just beat me up in a workout. That was really what it was. And it changes how you think because I think I'm, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like I may not be playing as a freshman, and I didn't expect to play as a freshman, even though I probably should have. Because if I'm doing all the things that my brother did, my brother started all 4 years. I did not. Um, so if I'm competing with him, check mark in his favor, right? But it's not a competition. So while it's more so just trying to do the things that he did because I knew that he did a great job. Um, but yeah, it was a brutal sit down talk with my dad, and it was a brutal workout at my uncle's gym, or I think it's at my uncle's house where he now has a gym, where the weights just kept getting heavier and the sun kept getting hotter because we were working out outside and there was no let up, and it was just like, no, you're gonna run, you're gonna go, and and then the like I said, we had the same coach, so whether or not my brother picked up the phone and called Coach Sheptalk and was like, hey, don't worry about that. It's handled. Um, Maybe he did that. Maybe he didn't. I have no idea. But those were the two things that really did it for me. And it put me on the right path. And ultimately, I graduated with like a 3.3 or something like that. I
Turn
don't
that around.
remember. I don't remember from freshman year to senior year. I don't remember what the final number was. I remember that 1.2 because it was brutal, um, and I had to really suck it up. So, but I mean, athletically, yeah, like it was a motivating factor for me. I wanted to be on the field. I wanted to play. Um, I needed to be on the field. It wasn't just a want. Like I needed to be out there. I needed to contribute. I was not. I am not a spectator by any means. I'm not a spectator. Now I get paid to be a spectator, certainly, but at that stage in my career, I was not a spectator. I am here to be out on that field. You are supposed to hear my name being called. I'm going to contribute to this team. And that was a big thing for me. And I made sure that, I was handling it in the classroom and I was handling it on the field and in the gym. I won't say that I didn't party. I had a ton of fun with my friends, some of which I just saw this past weekend at my godson's birthday party. But we just made it work. When we got older, when me and my roommates got older, a lot of it was accountability. Oh, you're going to a party instead of going to the library, you have a final tomorrow. Like, take your ass to bed. You know what I mean? So, and there wasn't too many of those conversations. I think there was one or two where I was like, man, like I just need a break. I want to just go out and have fun and not think about this. But it was just like, this is what your priorities are. This is what the next stage of your life is going to look like. Either you're going to, go out and party, or you're going to get to work and you're going to, keep driving it home. So, I had a really good circle, whether it was on campus or at home. I had a really good circle that really pulled me out of that 1.2, and ultimately, I have my degree in English and communications, and standing here now.
I dig it, man. It warms my heart to hear a former college athlete put some sense into a current college athlete. I feel like that speaks very philosophically to what we're trying to do here. So that's pretty awesome. And I think, too, the fact that football was a motivating factor for you to sort of keep things going in college, or shift things in a positive direction in college. Sounds like that then built into a desire to just expect more from yourself in college and in different
Mhm.
aspects of your life. And I think for a lot of kids that go in and are thinking about doing sports, it's okay if that's your motivating factor. Like if that's what's keeping you in the classroom and that's what's keeping you from partying every single night, as opposed to maybe, just on some weekends and things like that, man, that's great. Like whatever you need to do to get in there and find that motivation to keep going and keep pushing forward in that degree plan, I think it is valid. I think, having something you're excited about in the classroom definitely makes a difference. Having people in your circle that can help you stay, in a rational, motivated space is always helpful. There's these pieces that you have to build up over the course of college, but man, when you're getting there, if that approach is, hey, I love this sport and I want to do everything I can to keep playing this sport, use it as fire to keep doing things. I mean, that's a great testament to that mentality to sort of get yourself to where you want to go. So I don't want to be a spoiler alert here, but I don't believe you were drafted in the
No,
NFL after your
no.
career. So tell me what happens when life tells you it's time to be a spectator, or tries to tell you it's time to be a spectator, I guess I should say. What
Yeah,
happens next?
yeah. Those motivating factors in college, they were tremendous. And before I even get there, like we were really good in college. We ended up winning a title. I think the championship ring is right back here behind me. That's actually the last helmet that I put on right there. It's my helmet for 4 years, but we were really good. So that's why I wanted to really contribute to being a really good team, and now we're part of the Wilkes Hall of Fame, and that was really good. And when things start to wind down, and you start to think of what's the next phase, and you're looking at internships, and I interned with an arena football team, which I contemplated playing for at one time. I was like, hey, maybe arena football is where it's at for me. But then, as the sports intern, as sports writing intern for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Pioneers, there was an Arena 2 football team during that year.
Nice.
I watched practice and I watched games and I watched a guy get thrown over the wall into the crowd. And I was like, I'm good up here watching the game. So that was kind of the motivating factor for me, was like, maybe it's time for you to just like stop with football. Excuse me. So it was hard to stop being an athlete. I'll always identify as an athlete. And then after college, I came home. I worked in sports marketing for 8 months. Um, and I moved to Myrtle Beach for a girl. Stupidly. I mean, wisely, but stupidly. Hindsight 2020, I moved for the wrong reason, but I had a tremendous time. I ended up coaching wrestling at Sockasty High School, home of Hunter Renfro, who is now playing for the Raiders. And, he was the quarterback there, so I got a chance to watch him as a quarterback in high school firsthand. Kid's amazing student of the game. He's going to be an amazing coach someday. He's definitely going to be in the NFL. Amazing athlete. The fact that I got a chance to watch him was great. But I was coaching wrestling in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, living on the beach for a year. And then I got the call to move home and work as a sports writer. And as I'm coaching, before I moved back home, and I'm coaching and I'm wrestling and I'm 22 and I'm wrestling with these high school kids and I'm not getting tired and I feel good, I'm like, yeah, competitive fire is not out. It's not gone. Not by any stretch of the imagination. So when I get home, I start thinking, what can I do? And I'm like, I don't think that wrestling is my path. And at this point, there's no regional training centers like there are now. Guys aren't really doing it to the next level the way that we see it now in wrestling. So I'm just like trying to figure it out. And I'm like, MMA is huge. And the UFC makes it look amazing. And I know guys that are, have fought in the UFC and guys that are fighting for Bellator right now. Those productions are great. They look amazing. But it's a hard road. It's a really hard road. But I started doing MMA, and I was doing MMA, and I was a sports writer for the newspaper all at the same time. So, guys like Darian Cruz, who was in high school at that point, before he went off to college at Lehigh, and guys like Mason Beckman, who was at Lehigh, I was putting in work. I was training essentially alongside of these guys, guys at Freedom, and I was cutting weight for fights as well as covering them, at tournaments. And, I'd show up and I was fighting at 155 pounds. I was, 50 pounds less than what I am right now. And I was fighting and I was covering sports, sometimes in the same week. I would have a tournament to cover, and then 2 days later I'd have to weigh in for my fight. And, I just was balancing. It was a balance act. So I was doing that, and I fought for 4 years. I was 4-2 in MMA, and sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I would have gotten into the ring. I wish I would have boxed a little bit more. The other day, literally yesterday, I was out for a run, and I was like, I should take another fight. I should box. Stupid me, just stupid old competitiveness in the back of my mind of like, I need something to train for, right? But like, that's what I was doing. I was fighting, and you're not making any money on low level promotions. My last two fights lasted a total of a minute, and I was 1-1 in those fights. I got knocked out in about 25 seconds. Choked out on my face, and then my next fight I end up slamming a guy and knocking him out in about 32 seconds or something like that. So my last fight was, I want to say, a month before getting the job with Flow Sports and moving to Texas. So it was, I don't think I managed post-college athlete life very well. Because it just wouldn't shut off. I mean, think about it. Like I just said, just yesterday I was thinking I can still compete, right? So, like, it just never shuts off for me. It just doesn't shut off. I know the difference, though, between playing in a fun slow pitch softball game or getting in the ring and truly competing. When I go to the gym and I work out now, I kind of flip on that competitive switch and I'm like, I'm here for a reason. Go get that work in. But I know that it's just me trying to be the best version of myself now. That's where my competitive fire comes from now, just trying to be the best me. I have incredible people around me. I have intense OCD, so I'm competitive, way beyond what people know. So it's still hard for me to balance the fact that I'm no longer competing, especially when I have friends of mine who are college coaches and went on to win Olympic medals. Jordan Burroughs, get a chance to talk to him whenever I want. Like, he's still competing and we're the same age. And it's just like, man, I don't know how he's doing it. He's looking for another world medal. And I just look at him like, I want to compete. Like, you're so motivated by these other guys that are doing things and they're the same age as you. But it's really hard to do. It's really hard to do. I don't think that I could just lace them up and get back out there. It would take a lot. It would take probably a lot of ice packs and a lot of Advil to really get me to compete again. So while I think I could still do it, I know my body's like, man, you're 34 going on 340. So just chill out. Enjoy the time you have where you get to compete with yourself every day and be the best version of yourself.
I dig, and I think it's important, like you've talked about in the past little bit, finding. I think us as athletes, man, it never really goes away. I don't think. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to wake up one day and be like, I'm content with all the things that are in my life. Like, I don't think that happens,
Yeah.
right? And it's just a mentality. You can't compete at that level without having sort of that gene, it feels like, or having that mentality on certain things. And so I think finding effective ways to release that outlet or find healthy ways to use that in productive fashions is the most effective thing to do. Like you said, understanding that, hey, if you're going to go play in a league softball, rec league with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your coworkers or whoever it is, understand what that is and understand what other people are there for and treat it as such. Treat it as a fun thing. But if we're going to go to the gym and we're going to get after it and everyone knows that's my place where I'm going to get after it, you're coming in with that expectation. I'm here, and if you want to meet me here, let's all rock on. If not, this is what I need. This is my medicine. This is what gets that out of my system and allows me to still feel that fire and do what I need to do. And I think that can come in a ton of different mediums for different people. So finding those effective switches is huge for former athletes.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I'm one of the things as you get older, you realize, when I'm paying for something, it's coming out of my pocket. I'm going to get my money's worth, and I'm paying at the gym. I'm paying to use that facility. So the fact that I'm paying to be there, I'm going to get everything I can out of it. And one of those things, that kind of came from that sit down with my dad where I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing in college. And I'm like, my parents and I are paying for this. I am paying to be here. You better put the work in, and that's kind of where I get my mentality at now. Put the work in. Wake up every day. Put the work in. I listen to the same track before I work out. It's the number one thing on my put in the work playlist on my Spotify. You got to get your mind right going into things. You have to. And I try and pride myself on mental toughness, but mental acuity and mental health more than anything, where I no longer try and be too tough to say I'm not okay, to say I'm not in the mood, to say that to brush things under the rug. Yeah, certainly sometimes I put myself second, a lot more of the time than anything I put myself second, but I try and make sure that I check in with myself and my gym time. It's important to me. Having that balance is important to me. I didn't have that balance before. I used to be always switched on when it came to work. I was always checking my phone or, I had my computer with me. So at any moment's notice, if there was breaking news, I could get on my computer and contribute to the team or whatever else. Now, 6 o'clock hits and my notifications for work shut off. automatically. I have that set on my phone. I don't want to be bothered with it till tomorrow. You had me all day. You'll get the next 8 or 9 hours of me tomorrow. If it's really that important, you pick up the phone, you call me. I have no problem getting on it. But nowadays, it's part of me being cognitively aware of the fact that I need my downtime. I need my detachment from people, from things, from anything, essentially, whether it's me sitting and writing or just free write, or it's me watching some trash TV to get myself completely away from work and thinking about work. I know I have to cognitively shut off and not think about things. So I go to the gym, I have a good meal, I invest in myself as much as I can, because one of the things that I have noticed, and some of my friends and I have had the conversation, is like, all the people that care about you, they always want you to be the best version of you. You can't be the best version of you if you're pouring into everybody else's cup more than you're pouring into your own, because you have nothing to give. If your cup is empty, you have nothing to give anybody else. So, it's a selfishly unselfish way of thinking, where I need to be the best version of me so that I can be the best version of me for these other people, and pour into these other people and do the great things that I really want to do. So that's kind of like where things have shifted now. My OCD is still competitive fire. I still feel like I can probably lace them up and compete. That's, more mental than physical, but I just try and be the best version of me every single day, because I have nieces and nephews that are coming up, that I want to make sure that they're like, my uncle does this, and they're proud to say that, because I had that growing up. I was able to say my brother does this, my uncle does this. So, that's a full circle kind of a look, where I want to be the person that, my nieces and nephews are like, my uncle is, he's on ESPN, like, I'm able to do this, I'm able to do that, and that's very important to me.
I love it, man. I may have wished I asked this question 4 minutes ago, because I think you just gave such an awesome answer to what I want to end this on. But in the effort of what we do in these stories, leaving your mark on the next generation, doing what you can to help. I feel like you've given me 6 of these in the last 5 minutes, and so feel free to pick one if that's what you like to do, or come up with one more lasting piece of knowledge for us. But looking back at whether it's talking to yourself, whether it's talking to the next generation of student athletes, what's something that those kids can, hear, take away, apply to what they're doing now, that's going to help prepare them for the next phase of their life, whether that be college, career, or beyond?
The one thing that, maybe 2 things. One of them is tattooed on my chest, and it says, "What we do in life echoes in eternity." It's from the movie Gladiator, but like it's infinite, right? Like, leave your impact on the world. And what goes into that is, the other thing I tell myself every day is, just be you. It's the only thing you do perfectly. No one is perfect, but the only thing you truly do perfectly is being yourself. No one can take that away from you. There's no impersonator in the world that can be a better version of you than you. You are, that's the only thing you're an expert in, is who you are. Some people are still struggling to figure that out, but you still know more about you than anyone else. So yeah, like that's my advice when you go into anything. You're going to be an athlete, be exactly who you are. I don't care if you're celebrating at the 10-yard line, make sure you score, but I don't care if you're celebrating a touchdown, right? I don't care if you're bat flipping a home run. Be authentically you, because that's what everybody is going to gravitate to. When you're being a jackass and you're disrupting things, people don't gravitate to that. It may, get you a lot of clicks on Instagram, or a lot of likes on Instagram, or, retweets, or people might like things on Facebook. Like, yeah, because people love disaster, and they like it when they feel like they're better than somebody else. But people truly gravitate towards confidence and greatness. And the only thing you can ever do confidently and perfectly is being who you are. And you should do it unapologetically. I don't apologize for being who I am. I don't apologize for saying, no, I don't want to do that, or anything else. Like, know who you are, be where your feet are at all times, Just enjoy your moments. And if you do that, success will certainly come, and if it's something that you're interested in, put your all into it. I know I'm probably giving a whole bunch of like cliches right now, but like it's kind of like how I try and start my day is like you woke up on purpose. There's a reason that you woke up. If you weren't supposed to be here, you wouldn't be here. So be who you are, be unapologetic about it, and just, make sure you're always having fun. It's not going to happen 100% of the time. Sometimes you're going to feel out of place. Sometimes you're going to feel, that imposter syndrome, which I'll be honest, I feel almost every day. It's really hard, but you overcome it, right? It's just, you're like, am I truly supposed to be doing this? So it's really hard, but you can get the job done. Be confident in who you are, because that's why people want to be around you. So and that's why people gravitate towards the person that you are, is because you do that perfectly. It's the only thing that we do absolutely perfectly, and it's just be you.
I love it. I'm going to say no more things because that does not need to be edited on by any means. So, Ryan, I appreciate it, man. It was fun to flip the seats a little bit today and talk to you and learn more about your story. We talked about it earlier, man. I've heard pieces, I've heard bits, I've heard chapters in different phases and whatnot, but it was a blast to hear it all sort of in one fell swoop, man. And yeah, growing up, with this name, growing up in this environment, growing up and doing what you did, it's an absolute blast to listen to and to follow that story. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Yeah, it's I didn't take the easy route being a Holmes and getting into sports, but I'd say I charted my own path to the point where the people that I'm around, they don't know the full story. They don't care. They know who I am because, like I said, I'm unapologetically me, and it's all I can ever truly do. So if I can keep people gravitating towards my orbit by just being who I am, I'm happy.
I am one of those people, so I can attest to that.
Appreciate it.
I love it, Ryan. Thanks so much, man. It was a blast.